Hey everybody, welcome to one more round. Today I'm excited. We're kicking off 2026 with one of my good friends, Danny Brown. We've known each other a long time, technically like 20 years, but the last 12, 13 years, we've probably been in touch, throughout the year a lot. We were in Trust Equity together for 8. And are you still involved with Trust Equity?
I am, yeah. In fact, it's a professional networking group. Yeah, in fact, I had a meeting yesterday.
Good.
Yeah.
Good, yeah. Say hello to all of my friends over there. I'm Wendy. I talk to probably the most often, but yeah, we were just having lunch last month actually, and catching up. It was probably the longest gap in 10 years that we hadn't seen each other, and we had just kind of caught up a little bit. And you were telling me about how the real estate world was. It was a good year for you. The previous year was challenging for a lot of people, and you had mentioned some of the challenges, but specifically we were talking about the conversation about how you had seen a niche where you could go in and really help and work on that realm. So we'll get into that because that's like the probate side, and I know in my world I now deal with talking about those conversations every day, but for those that haven't watched, you're actually my first 3-time guest on the podcast.
Three-peat.
Yep, three-peat. There's only been other, I think Dom Majors and maybe one other person's come on twice. So, thank you for being the three-peat.
Yeah, I need like a gold jacket, or I think like SNL, they get robes when they've hosted for several times. So I need something.
I know. I will pick up the swag.
Yeah, it's an elite. I'm one.
That's right. Hey, on the
Elite
fourth
group
one,
of
I will
one.
pick it up.
All
You're
right.
going to get a robe. You might even get a staff.
There we go. I'll take
you get
it.
to play Moses
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
But so for those that haven't watched the other ones, the first episode was probably in our first 20 we did of One More Round. The other one was Aftershock Online way back in the day. But your story is unique on how you got into the real estate world, because you'd got in right around 2007, 2008?
Yeah, I got my license in 2007, right before the world came crumbling down and the great financial crisis, right? So it was a perfect opportunity to get into real estate. And, looking back on it, I figure if you can survive that time frame, you can really survive anything.
Yeah.
And since then, we've faced a lot of different ups and downs. Most recently, navigating COVID, which we were talking about before we started this podcast. It's been a wild ride for sure.
Yeah, and it was unique because when you came into it, I remember you telling me you did something like 100 transactions.
Yeah, 150.
150, like your first year in full time in the business, which is insane. Those of you who know realtors or in that space, you kind of understand the volume of that. And you also weren't making a lot of money on each transaction, right?
No. So when the great financial crisis hit, banks were foreclosing on people. Some homeowners, a lot of investment properties. So a lot of the properties were vacant or had renters in it, and the banks needed boots on the ground to assess those properties and help them basically sell them to recoup some of their losses. And so I was in a fortunate enough position to be one of those boots on the ground where we were doing a market analysis, telling them what the home was worth, navigating, helping the people that were occupying those homes relocate out of them, and being the eyes and ears for the bank in the local market to help them liquidate and sell those properties, right? The banks didn't want to hold these things. They were taking massive losses, and they needed people to list and sell them. And during that time, I would say the average price point was somewhere in the $30,000 to $60,000 range. Wow. I was super excited if I got something that was over $100,000. And I'll always remember the cheapest property I've ever sold was a $10,000 2-bedroom, 1-bath townhome in West Phoenix in Maryvale. And I remember joking at the time that I should put this on my Amex card because that was my limit.
Yeah.
And my 44-year-old self is super pissed off at my 25-year-old self for not actually doing that, because it's probably, 50x'd by now in terms of its value, and it would have been cash, so live and learn, but it was a super interesting time. I wouldn't trade it for the world because it made me a veteran in the industry, based on my first year, right?
Yeah.
Your average agent does maybe somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 15 deals a year. I did 150.
Yeah.
And it was great. So it took that a lot of volume to make any sort of money. And again, it was good training for sure.
Yeah, and like 10 years of experience, like that basically in 1 year is kind of how it all came down. So going through that, getting into the space, and then you kind of when I first met you, so I'll tell the story when we first reacquainted, because we met originally at Pure Fitness.
Yeah, we were gym buddies. Well, we saw each other. This is back when you put headphones in, you work out by yourself. We would see each other all the time, and then we finally started we were on the same gym schedule, so we kind of became acquaintances or friends.
Tight-lipped, nod buddies.
Yeah.
Right?
Can I get a spot? Yeah, one of those.
That's how it was, right?
Yeah.
And then, fast forward, I think it was 2013, we were both invited to this inaugural Trust Integrity meeting, and I don't know who invited you. Wendy invited me, and it's like, hey, it's this and they didn't call it this, but basically you coined the white collar networking is really what it was. And I'm like, Wendy, I don't know if I belong here, is pretty much what I told her. Oh, I'd love to have you. And I was helping her and already made strides with, Hernandez law and our family law. And I get there, I see you on the elevator, and I'm like, oh man, he looks familiar. But it'd been 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. And you were the same. You kind of looked at me, and we go into the room. We're the youngest by a decade in that room. And they're all like, half of them were attorneys. You got CPAs. Everybody's, just dressed really well and older. So we hear what this is all about. And somewhere along the lines in that meeting, we're like, oh, okay. And then afterwards, we were like, you probably said to me, did you go to Pure Fitness? I said, yeah, I used to work there. I was a field marketing director, and we reacquainted, and we both joined. And we were the inaugural members with Wendy and a few other folks. And it was such a great group, because I felt like I was a sneak in, and I learned so much from just being around these people that had so much more experience in business and life. It was pretty cool reacquainting that way.
I think when you're early on in whatever your career is, you need to say yes to almost everything, because you don't know what it's going to lead to. And I certainly had imposter syndrome going into that as well. But it introduced me to people that I never would have otherwise come in contact with, right?
Yes.
And some of those relationships I still value today. I am no longer obviously the youngest in that group. Yep. There's definitely younger people now. But I think it's something that, people that are listening or watching this, if you're just getting into business or you're young in your business, say yes to everything. You get invited to something, yes, absolutely. Go, because you don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what it's going to turn into. And then as you get older and more senior in your career, then I think you have to shift and you have to say no to everything. Yeah. And that's the struggle I've been dealing with, is saying no to more things. I have a coach, and he coined the phrase yesterday, I'm going to become the CEO of no. And I like that. And my attitude now is, if it's not a hell yes, I want to do that, then I need to say no, because it pulls me away from the other things that I should be doing. But early on in my career, I'm a yes man, say yes to everything, because you just don't know where it's going to lead.
I agree full-heartedly, because I was the same way. I would go anywhere people would invite me to, because you just never know who you're going to meet. Yep. And it's like that one person that you meet that, like, oh, okay, that could be a long-term now friend or someone you do business with, could be a business partner. You just never know when you're young. And yeah, you do have to shift over time. And what I found was, certainly as I started building my company in Aftershock, when I had that, and people were taking care of different things, and I was really the one out there still acquiring business, I could send, certainly as I started having salespeople, I could send them out to different things that maybe didn't make sense for me to be at, like a brand new, like, free networking thing that, everybody there is kind of brand new and free. But something that was paid that, had to have a little skin in the game, well, that made a little more sense for me to be at, because the caliber of not the caliber of person, but the person where they're at in their life made more sense of how I could connect with them and then probably grow.
Yeah. Well, and that's where delegation comes in,
Yeah.
right? Any leader you can't be in all of the places. So
Right.
then you need to start learning how to delegate and send different people in your stead to represent you to those different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but like when we started up, and you had just started Myriad, and I kind of helped with some of the marketing in the beginning with you, and you started to hire people, and I got to know some of your team, and Morgan specifically was still with you, and it's been phenomenal. Like you did a good job of grooming people, and if they were the right seat on the bus, you did a really good job at helping cast a vision. But if they weren't, I always saw you get rid of people quick if they weren't.
So, in some of those cases, I wish I would have gotten rid of people faster.
Yeah.
Right. But you have a soft spot, and you want to try to really help people and make sure. But I think that the adage of hire slow and fire fast is true. And if you have the wrong people on the bus, it's really hard to be successful. And when you start getting the right people and you get A players, when you have those B players, one, they stand out. Like you absolutely know you have a B player. And the B players alienate your A players because now the A players have to work even harder to make up for their deficiencies.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is piss off your high performers and your best people for these B players. Your A players will respect you a lot more if you are super protective of that, and they'd rather you get rid of that person to make sure that you're looking for the right person. So you've got to act quickly if you want to maintain that sense of culture and maintain the respect of the high performers that are on your team. Because those people that aren't high performers can certainly bring you down. And the worst ones are the ones who are like really good salespeople, but toxic personalities, right? Because then you feel like, well, the sales they're bringing in make up for the toxic personality that they have. And I think that will ruin the culture, that will ruin your business faster than anything. Yes. So even though it stinks to get rid of somebody who's good at sales, if they are not good in your company's culture, you still got to get rid of them. They've got to have the buy-in and buy into your vision and be respectful of your team and good at sales, right? So it's not just one or the other. They've got to have both of those attributes to be to help your company succeed.
Yeah, I think it's deal mentality of like, let's just get a deal and that person is the best at just getting a deal mentality, or it's mission mentality, right? And the mission mentality is, okay, who are we as a company? Where are we going? Who do we serve? What's best long term? And who aligns with the mission? So the way it was always told to me, my old mentor and still one of my greatest friends today, he always said mission, men, self, right? So what is our mission? Who do we serve? What are we doing? Who are the people that are on this, that are behind it? And are they behind that mission? If they're not, and they're looking out just for themselves, then they got to go. And then it's you. Then you make decisions based on yourself, but you're always third in that. And as a leader, that's kind of how you have to position everything for long term.
Yeah, I agree.
And then casting what that mission is for people, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Are we just transactional? Are we just doing that? Or are we building something to help families and to make their lives easier and for generational ways being able to help people? Because I know you are. I mean, how many have you had? Anybody you have to at this point have had kids of some of your old clients come to you and you've worked with?
Yeah. In fact, one of my employees is the girlfriend of one of my clients' kids. And he's planning on he just started his own, he's a pool guy, runs his own pool company now. And he's going to be in a position, after he files his taxes to purchase his first home. But yeah, he introduced me to one of my employees, and she's fantastic. Yeah. And that's the child of one of my, past clients.
Yeah, and that's awesome, because they know if they're going to work for Danny and Myriad, that Myriad's going to take care of you. Myriad's going to be around. And that's such a huge thing when you're building a company, is because it kind of lives without you. Yes, your name's behind it, but the culture that you've created, the experience the customer has experienced while they're working with you, like that transcends when people are talking about you, and then they come in and they get the same experience. And Like that's the culture you want to build. And you've
Yeah.
done a good job with that. I've witnessed it. So I
Thank
don't
you.
say that just to say, hey, good job, Danny. No, I'm like, I witnessed behind the scenes. I got to see a lot of your players and the ones that were there and the ones that didn't stay.
Yeah. Well, in the bank-owned days and the great financial crisis, that was transactional, right? You're very transactional with the banks, and if you're not, they'll just move on to the next person, and there's no relationship, right?
Yeah.
But when you're helping regular people and their families, you got to go deep and be of service. And I have helped, individuals where I start with one family member and then I end up helping their kids, and then all of a sudden their kids refer me to their cousins, and now I'm helping, that whole family. And so it's like this web, if you will, of helping a family.
Yeah.
And so that, my greatest honor is if I do a good enough job that I get introduced to their family, like they're trusting you. That means that you've done something right and performed well, that they're now referring their family to you. So that goes a long way.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'll go back to our lunch.
Yes.
When we were sitting down at Wild Tiger, which if you haven't been there in Phoenix, it's delicious food. I know
Favorite
you eat-
Thai food restaurant.
Yeah, and it's conveniently right across
Right
from
across the
his
street, yep.
from his office. Yeah, great food. But we were talking about in the last couple of years, you started to kind of hone in on a specific, niche in the business that wasn't being served, and you started really kind of getting after that and working with people like attorneys in the probate world. And so as we were talking, because I do estate planning, and now I just got my CHFCs. We're doing financial planning for people and all that, and it's always about trying to leave a legacy and make sure that the right things are in place. You hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst. And preparing for the worst is getting your estate plan documents, it's having your life insurance, it's making sure beneficiaries are listed on all of your different accounts and all that kind of stuff. And you were like, man, so many people don't have this stuff in place, and you've kind of seen it. So tell me unpack a little bit about how you started working with that world and what you do and what you've seen.
Yeah, so it really stemmed from, I built my business on first-time homebuyers. Love first-time homebuyers, still do. Buying your first home has become a huge challenge due to affordability in this post-COVID world, right? So those people kind of started disappearing from the market. And then I love also helping people sell their current home to buy their next one. It's this complicated transaction. I personally hate moving, so if I can help my client sell their current home to upgrade or downsize into their next home without having to make multiple moves, like how do I solve that puzzle for them? And that was great during COVID. Tons of people did a real estate transaction during that time because interest rates were so low during that time frame. And so just for metrics, there's roughly $15 trillion in outstanding mortgage debt, right? During COVID, $10 trillion went through the system all at the same time. That's through purchases, refinances, some sort of transaction. And in my mind, it was like, holy shit, that is a lot of people. If all these people are doing something with their mortgage and a real estate transaction, on the other side of this, who is going to be doing real estate if this many people have gone through the system? They're probably going to be set for a period of time, right? And then interest rates started rising really quickly. So I pivoted my business kind of looking at the tea leaves and like, where is business going to come from? And so I really put a focus on estate and probate attorneys because people pass away regardless of what market cycles do. And then really started focusing on the senior living space as well, because that's very complementary to estate and probate. Those individuals are towards the end of their life. They're either looking to downsize, move into assisted living, memory care, or something like that. And so I really pivoted to start networking and meeting with those professionals that had access to those people. And so I started to tailor my business and create programs to really help those families navigate those very difficult times in their lives, whether they're grieving the loss of a loved one or coming to terms with, this is the last home I'm ever going to have. And occurred to me while going through this and recognizing that the one guarantee that we all have in this life, regardless of our race, our socioeconomic background, our political leanings, doesn't matter where we're born, it doesn't matter, is that we're all going to pass away. We are all going to die at some point in time. And the fact that nobody talks about that and nobody plans for it is crazy to me. Something that is so guaranteed that nobody has a plan, or very few people do. And my hope for everyone is that you live to a ripe old age and you've had a wonderful life and you're surrounded by family and friends and it's very peaceful. But for a large majority, it is not. Life is chaotic and unpredictable. You, for example, one of the healthiest guys I know, I'm sure you've talked about it in this, suffered a huge health setback that could have taken your life. And I don't think you had a plan in place during any of that.
No, I did not have my estate plan in place. I had some other things, but
yeah,
no, I didn't have my estate plan.
And it's a lack of education, and we all live in these bubbles where, oh, that's not going to happen to me. Right. It's not going to happen to me, but it does. Yeah. I mean, I could leave after this podcast, and I could get into a fatal car accident. I could step off the side. Like, shit happens in life. And again, it came down to just educating people on the importance of having these things in place. And then this last year, it became even more evident because I had two tragedies in my personal life where I lost a really good friend to esophagus cancer, mid-40s, 2 kids. He's the breadwinner in the family. Super fit. He ran Ironmans, and it's just something that happened. And no life insurance, no estate plan or anything in place. His wife had to start a GoFundMe page to try to make ends meet, and now they're having to figure this stuff out. And I'm so sad that I lost my friend, but I'm pissed that he didn't do the mature thing, the adult thing, to put things in place to protect his family. And I don't think that it was on purpose. I think it was a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge.
Kick the can down the line.
Exactly. Like, I'll do this when I'm older. And then my cousin passed away in October, a week before his 46th birthday, from pancreatic cancer. And he was the type of guy that would walk into a room and he would instantaneously be the smartest person there. Serial entrepreneur, lived in Silicon Valley, multiple startups, very successful, and you get pancreatic cancer, it's a death sentence. Yep. You can have all the hope in the world and do all the things to try to beat it, but it's pretty much a death sentence. And he had 9 months to put his affairs in order and didn't. And he had a will, but it wasn't signed. And we were at the funeral, and the family's hugging and crying and celebrating him. Fast forward a month after, there's no plan in place. He has this estate, and now it's going to probate, and the family on that side is fighting over it because his wife isn't honoring the signed will, unsigned will, and his brother was supposed to be the executor. Like, it's so messy. And if he would have just done a trust, especially when you have those kind of assets, or signed the will, or had it, just some of the basic things.
Even if you sign the will, the probate process is easier.
A little bit. They'll take it into consideration. It's not ironclad.
Not at all. Man, I'm not recommending that.
No.
Like, right, you want to trust, you want to have your assets owned by the trust and all that. But if it's signed, it still makes it to where they're going to take it in deeper consideration. Yeah.
So I think, it's become more and more of a passion of mine to make sure that people understand and are educated that they have to do this.
Yeah.
Get life insurance when you're young and fit and healthy, because it's never going to be cheaper.
Thank God I did. Yeah.
Yes, right. Like, you can never get it again.
Nope, not a chance.
Never. And so to not have these things in place when you're young and fit and healthy and before you need it, right? It's selfish. It's stupid. And people need to understand that. And so that's it. it was a pivot that I made because the market was shifting, and it's something that now, through personal experience in my own family and friends, and then witnessing it with other families, it's become a real passion to try to educate and make sure that people are aware of that they have to do this stuff.
Yeah.
The number of people that don't have a basic estate plan in place is super, super high. And the number of people that don't have a trust, and even if you don't have a lot of assets and you just have a home, you should at least have a beneficiary deed filed. You got to save your family these headaches on the back end of if something happens to you.
Yeah. Yeah, statistically, even people that have a trust, 68% of trusts aren't funded, meaning that there's nothing that actually is tied the assets to the trust.
And I would say that that's probably the fault of the estate or trust attorney with poor follow-up. Having done my own trust, I will tell you the biggest pain in the ass was actually funding it and going through and making sure all the accounts, but my trust attorney was on me and calling me and like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? So if you're a trust or an estate attorney and you're watching or listening to this and your clients, you don't follow up with them to make sure that they fund it and put, like, shame on you, right? Like you need to make sure that people follow through with it and do it, because if you don't, then it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, so we prepare all the paperwork for it, like all the beneficiary paperwork. We'll do the quick claims for their homes and all that kind of stuff.
The home is the easy one.
It is.
It's actually going to the banks to put the accounts, and if you have life insurance, contacting them to make your trust the beneficiary of the life insurance policy.
It is a lot. It is a lot. But like, we try to make it as easy as possible by giving all the paperwork to them. Here's who you need to contact. And I always tell people, like, hey, do you have a banker that you work with? Because many people that have a bank account, they have like 3 or 4 with the same person. Cool. You don't have someone? Go into your bank, say, hey, I need to update my beneficiary. Take your certificate of trust. They're going to give you a document. You're going to fill out the document. They're going to verify. And that's that. If you got a financial guy, your retirement accounts, those types of things. Who's your retirement planner? Oh, well, I work with whatever, Edward Jones or whoever. Cool. Call up your guy and say, hey, I need to update my beneficiary paperwork. Send me any documentation. He should have your life insurance. He should have your retirement accounts, your securities, and your investment accounts. He will send you those documents. Make them go to work for you, too.
Yes.
That's the other thing I tell people. It's like, hey, they're professionals and they're getting paid a fee. Guess what? Sometimes they got to work.
Yeah.
So... that's the easiest way to get those things done. That's why we provide the paperwork too, where they can just send it to them. And a lot of times it's like, cool, sign this. But you're right, it is tough, and it's sad that it's just not done. But I have found a lot of attorney stuff, and I have some great attorney friends, as you know. Like in my aftershock days, it's actually the biggest niche I had was with attorneys, and most of them don't like doing estate planning, though. It's not like their favorite. They go in other facets of law.
But most estate and trust attorneys that I know, there was a reason that they got into it. They pivoted into it. That may not have been their initial choice, but then something like what happened to my family happens to them, and now all of a sudden they've become passionate about it. The other thing, people, once you have it, you're not done, because your financial situation will change over time. Yeah. And your family makeup will change over time too. So when those major life events happen, you need to update your will, your estate plan, your trust, whatever it may be. You need to make sure those things are updated, because life changes. And again, if you're an estate, if you're what you guys do, if you're handling any sort of estate planning or trust for people, you need to do regular follow-up.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the biggest miss with a lot of the attorneys that I've met and work with. I call every one of my clients on their anniversary of when they purchased their house to thank them, to congratulate them, to give them an update on what I think their value is. I think estate and trust attorneys should call their clients on an annual basis to say, thank you for doing your trust with me. Has your financial situation or your family status changed in the last year that we need to update your trust? Yeah. Right? Because it does change. Again, life is chaotic, and there was a recent story that came out, I think, where a guy had passed away, and he had a beneficiary on one of his accounts, and it had millions of dollars in it. And the beneficiary was an ex-girlfriend from like 15 years ago. Yep. He never updated it. Now, fortunately, that it worked out because she did the right thing. But had she not, she's just inherited a bunch of money. because she was labeled a beneficiary as a girlfriend, 10 or 15 years ago. So like that stuff, you need to be on top of it. It's part of being a grown-up. Take care of your shit.
Yeah, totally. And Eli, so to your point, once a year we actually do a free review on all of our stuff. So the anniversary is like, hey, anything changed? And that's going to be like, have you had any kids? Have you added any new accounts? Have you taken away any accounts? Have you bought or purchased a new home? Have you sold your home? Like these are all things that happen. If you got a divorce, right? Divorce is a big one. It's just like you just want to make sure that on a yearly basis it's all up to date, because last thing you want, in fact, I don't want to say my favorite clients, but the easiest clients to take on are people that got it done 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they've never looked at it again, they've never changed it, and guess what? They're like, yeah, a lot's changed. Great. We're going to restate it to the beginning date, and we're going to layer on everything that's been done since. But yeah, we need to update it. And by the way, I'm never going to let this happen to you again. Every year, I'm going to bug you, and anything that needs to be changed, we just do.
Yeah.
Because that's the way it should be. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it's you're right. I mean, having this stuff in place is not something people talk about. It's not dinner conversation, but to a degree, it should be, and it should be something that, like we did a seminar yesterday at the Tempe Library. We had 26 people there, and like it was that's actually the capacity of the room, and everybody was just like all of an age where they're in their I'd say late 50s and 60s, and they're like, yeah, it's time to finally get this done. And I always ask a question. Listen, people come into seminars like this for one or two reasons. They're either A, personally dealing with something, right? So I had somebody go through the probate process, or you're doing that in a beloved one, or you saw somebody go through it. Who's number one? And most of the hands go up for number one.
Yeah.
Because they just watched it and like, oh my God, my mom just passed away, my sister just passed away, I'm dealing with this, we got to get this stuff in place. But like, why wait till that? Hey, I waited until I was in the hospital. I was guilty. But that's why it's like I'm so passionate about it. I'm like, I am hey, don't do what I did, and I'm telling you I did it wrong. Make sure you have this stuff in place. So.
Yeah, I mean, so, mine came out of shifting, and you're probably like, Danny, you're a realtor. Why do you care so much about this? Well, I help these families sell the home. Right. When there's a death in the family, especially in Phoenix, a lot of times the family may not live here, and there's real estate that's involved with the transaction. And I've witnessed many, many times the families having to navigate the probate process to be able to get ownership of the house. So they're leaving it up to the government, the courts, to decide if they're the ones that can do it. And so I've had to go in and I've had to testify or be an expert witness multiple times in some of those probate hearings. I have seen families, talking about my own, but also others that were super fine. And then all of a sudden, somebody passes away and there's this, estate to deal with, and now people are fighting over what to do with it. Money changes people.
It does.
And real estate, there's a lot of value in real estate, and so it can change the dynamic within families for sure, and create a lot of infighting that didn't need to be there. And a lot of times when someone passes, they're just unprepared for it, and so it's navigating not just the estate, but all the personal property that's inside, right?
Yes.
The home, and it's what do you do with all of that? And so we started to develop programs to try to help these families navigate that. So when I come in, I'm not just talking about the real estate, I'm talking about the entire estate in general to help guide this family to get to a successful closing with not just the real estate, but with all of the stuff that goes with it.
Yeah.
So we work with, we'll bring in an estate sale person. We will bring in someone if an estate sale if the home doesn't warrant an estate sale, the family doesn't want to do it, we'll help donate items to charity. And there's numerous charities out there that benefit. So we can tailor it to, if the deceased really liked a certain organization. So we can tailor where those items get donated to. And then as a last resort, taking things to Goodwill. Like there are Goodwill's weird. They're a for-profit company, but you still get the tax write-off. We do what we can to keep things out of the dump. And then that's kind of the final resting place. If even Goodwill won't take it, is taking things to the dump. So we'll help the families navigate and remove those items. And then really working with them on, is it best to sell the home in as-is condition? Would it make sense to put some money into it to get a higher sales price? And like, what's that balancing act look like? And then we help them on the financial side. So a lot of times when somebody passes away, what people don't realize is that you got to pay for all of this stuff. The bank doesn't care that somebody passed away. So if there's a mortgage, got to keep making that payment. Utilities, upkeep, moving expense, like all of these things, there's costs associated with it. And if there's not a bank account already set up to manage the estate, it becomes a financial burden on the family to have to deal with these things. And so I created a program where we will front all those costs for the family so that they don't have to come out of pocket at all when they're facing those challenges. So I've paid mortgages. I've paid attorney's fees, which the attorneys love because a lot of times they're not getting paid until the estate's settled. So I'll pay their fees. I'll pay for moving expenses. I'll ship items across the country. Light remodel, landscaping, pool, like whatever that is, whatever expenses the family is faced with or burdened with, we will cover those costs for them. And then when the home sells, we just get paid back. There's no interest, there's no fees, there's no bank involved. This is my own personal cash flow to help the families out. And it's a dollar for dollar return. I always get asked, what's the catch to the program? I get to list and sell the home and help the family. So for me, it's a wash on that side of things, and I'm getting to help them sell the home, and the joy of trying to help that family who's in a difficult spot, so they can focus more of their time on grieving, hopefully eliminating some of the infighting on who's going to pay for this, how are we going to pay for it,
continuing to work.
Right? Yes,
'cause that's a super tough thing when a loved one has passed away. And now you have all this on your shoulders to take on and figure out and all that stuff, and keep your job going and make sure that that's not going downhill.
And a lot of time, Phoenix is not a lot of natives, right? And so a lot of people have moved here.
You and me and about 10 others.
Right, in our age bracket for sure. But a lot of people, their family don't live here. And so how do you manage and navigate all of this when you are living in a different state? Well, we quarterback the whole thing for you. So a lot of times, some of the families that we help never even step foot in the house. They may come once and be like, we're going to take these things with us, the rest, and we can make it and we can run it so that they don't ever have to come back to the home if they don't want to. Right? So that they can focus on their job, their families, those types of things. So it's, where's the friction points in that transaction that we can solve for them. And our loan program has really helped a lot of families that are in tough spots.
No, that's awesome. Well, obviously you can help anybody. I've known you a long time. So first-time buyers, move-up buyers, move-down buyers, all of those, and you understand the intricacies of all the different transactions. But I will say, reach out to Danny for that. But if you guys have anybody who has just had a family member pass away that needs to understand navigating this process, I know a lot of people in the real estate world, you have this in spades over anybody that I know. So that's a huge value to you. And when we do estate plans, in fact, we have a flyer that goes into our estate plan that has Myriad on there, kind of talks about these programs. Now, we obviously hope our clients live longer than Danny's doing real estate, right? But it's there to where if they need it and an expert in that world, we have that. So.
Yeah. And I do the same program in the senior living space too, right? So a lot of times when it comes to seniors who are still with us, they're ready to move into independent, assisted, or memory care, and the families are, well, we have to sell the house before mom or dad can move into the community. Well, with me, you don't. I can pay their rent, I can pay their mortgage, I can pay their moving expenses. We can get them into the home today, and then I can go ahead and sell the property and then get paid back through the proceeds of the sale. And what I have found is that really helps the seniors, right? And a lot of times with our seniors, and these are our parents at this point, but we are social creatures, and we're not meant to live alone. And these communities are not like the nursing homes of our grandparents or our great grandparents. These places, these communities are vibrant. They're fun. There's food. There's drinks. These people are having a good time. And in my opinion, they need to get out of the home and into these communities as soon as possible to start integrating and making friends, and you'll see the health of your parents improve. And it's interesting to see. And I've had clients where they tell me, like, the highlight of my week is when I get to go to the doctors, because they get to leave the house. And I'm like, that is no way to live. Like, I don't want the highlight of my week to be when I go to the doctor. And so, introducing these people to these types of communities, and they're not like over the moon expensive either.
No, they're not. Yeah. So Joanne, so we've done a lot of like 55 plus communities. Mira Vista. They have 4 that we've done different estate plannings. In fact, I just had somebody yesterday. We were getting all their estate plan documents notarized, and I was like, "Oh, what do you guys got going on tonight?" Like, "Oh," and by the way, he's 87. And they're not married, but she, who we're doing the estate planning for, she's 75. So they just enjoying life together. And it's like, oh well, they have a happy hour tonight at the facility, and then they got a movie show, and so we're probably gonna do that. And it's like, we try to get out, and it's always fun. They love it. They love being there. And I've done a bunch of estate plans for people in those facilities, and they all say the same kind of things. Like, we enjoy it, and it's not expensive. I got the cost. I'm like, holy smokes. Now, they don't own it necessarily in those cases,
yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It's like it includes so much other than
it's like
just
an all-inclusive resort for
Exactly.
seniors, and you're having a good time. Like I said, it's not my grandparents, my great-grandparents' nursing home. And so
those were depressing. I've been there.
But helping the families recognize that it's not a nursing home, and helping them transition into those communities sooner. Selfishly, it makes the sale of the home a lot easier.
Right.
It can be difficult to sell a home when the senior's there because they have a hard time leaving sometimes. I had one client that they were so anxious about selling. They were both on oxygen tanks, and so they have these big things sitting in their home, and they have 100 yards of tubing like through the house, and they're concerned people are going to step on it or trip over them. And I was like, I got you. Let's move you into the community now. The home will be empty. You won't have to worry about that at all. And they were just like, their minds were blown that they could go into the community today, not have to worry about showings and people coming through their house and stepping on them, their oxygen tubes. And so again, it comes down to where are the friction points in the real estate transaction, and how can I solve those problems for that family?
One of the things I've come across a handful of times, but it seems to be the conversation, is people that are our age, maybe a little older, but basically our age to about 50, and their parents, and having that conversation. If you could give some advice on how to start that conversation to their parents on, hey, might be time to look at selling the home, and there are these communities out there, what would you say? How do you start that conversation?
It's so funny. One of the things that I always think about is there's an episode of The Office when Steve Carell was leaving, and he was dating Holly. And Holly's parents, in that episode, you learn that they have early onset dementia. And she asks, Phyllis, I think, for some advice. And the advice she gave was, if you're waiting for your parents to tell you they're ready, they're never going to tell you. And so my advice to the families is, if you're waiting for your parents to tell you we're ready to move into one of these things, they're not. Facing mortality, facing age, it's a scary thing to do. And a lot of times, especially with our aging parents, I think that they have visions of their parents being in nursing homes, and they don't want to go to that because they think they're losing their freedom. And in my opinion, when they see them and see others in their demographic there, they start to recognize that they're actually gaining their freedom. They're getting freedom back. And it's okay to ask for help. And these communities are there to help, and just when you need it. And it's you got to go and you got to see them, and you got to bring your parents with that. They're not sad. They're not depressing. These people are having fun. Whatever your passion is, there's going to be a group of people who share in that passion. You know, if it's playing cards, if it's cars, if it's, you know, former military duty and sharing stories, whatever your passion is, there's going to be people in that community that share that passion, and you're going to have instant friendships, and it gives you a purpose back, right? Like, it gives you a reason to get out of bed, get dressed, because you're going to go see your friends. And so my advice is, if you're waiting for your parents or you're waiting for your loved one to tell you they're ready, it's not going to happen. So you have to take the lead. You have to be the grown-up in the situation and recognize that they need to go to one of these places and be the one that shepherds and moves them along before something bad happens. You know, and again, I speak to stories and anecdotes, and that's what I told my parents about my grandma is, you know, if you're waiting for, like, something bad's going to happen. She started falling. She was having gaps in her memory and not taking medication. And I was like, you've got to take the lead on this. If you're waiting for her to tell you when she's ready, it's just not going to happen. And so they did, and her quality of life has improved. She's taking her medication when she's supposed to. And so there's improvement there. So that would be my advice, is you've got to be the grown-up. You've got to be the one that recognizes that it's time, and have those conversations.
Love it. Awesome, man. Well, this is a great conversation, as always. How can people find you? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm on all social media platforms. Well, I shouldn't say all. I'm not a TikTok guy, but Instagram, Facebook, email. I don't know if you put them in the show notes
Yeah,
or
I'll
whatever.
put them in the show notes.
Yeah. Phone and email is definitely the best. Text. If anybody has any questions, if they're going through any of these things, I've got a super vast network of people who can help. So use me as a resource. There's a thing called senior placement agents for seniors, right? That are almost like a buyer's agent. They're not licensed in real estate, but they will take people to the different communities, and they'll interview you and talk, like, what are your parents interested in, or what are you interested in? And they'll tailor the homes to what they're interested in, what's within their budget, so they can take a lot of the guesswork out of it. A big issue is, I've got this 3,000 square foot house, and now I'm going into one of these communities, and I've got to, downsize into 900 square feet. How do I manage all of my stuff? I work with a senior downsizing solutions expert. That is her job. She helps people navigate downsizing from a large home into one of these communities. And then if you're facing, the loss of a loved one and just don't know where to go, again, I have a pool of resources. I just want to help people that are in these situations, and happy to do it.
Love it. Awesome. Well, I can't highly recommend Danny anymore. I mean, he's been a long-time friend, but he's also helped people that I know buy and sell their homes. He's very, very passionate about what he does, always has been, which, you got to appreciate about somebody who loves, it's not that you love every single thing about your job, but you love the mission that you're on. And he's one of the few people I know that has done that for almost 2 decades, right? Almost 2 decades, just constantly every day. So good friend of mine, reach out to him. We appreciate you guys tuning in today. We look forward to seeing you next time.